Hello, all.
Hi, Peter.
Hi, I'm traveling. I should be able to click on my computer in about 15 minutes.
She's the board secretary. That's just in case.
Somebody needs to let Olivia in as well.
For that.
Hi, Olivia. How are you?
That was quick, Nancy.
I'm still on my phone. I haven't got the computer up and going.
I know, but you said 50 minutes to be home.
Well, it'll be 15 minutes before I get this computer to go.
Ah,
But in the meantime, I am here. How have you been?
been well, thank you.
Good.
Hope the same is true with you.
Yes.
I'm glad to hear that.
Thank you.
Hmm.
So it looks like we're all here. So I guess we will call our meeting to order.
I can't hear them.
Yeah, can you somehow turn it up? Yeah.
What's that?
I think they're having audio issues.
Yeah, it looks at.
I can hear Peter, I just couldn't hear Kevin.
Let's try that again. Is there?
I can hear you now, it's just very faint.
What's that?
You're rather faint.
Okay. Let me try turning the volume up a little bit here.
Can you hear me okay?
Is that better?
Knocked off. Hi Nancy, can you hear me? Perfect.
Yes.
Is that better?
Yep.
Okay. Got the volume cranked up on all of the devices. You know, my PC's loading an update version of Zoom, so I had to jump onto my other device.
Like
So,
he's using a headset right now, so can you turn that up?
We can't hear some of the board members well. Is there a way to crank that up a little, or is that on their end? That's on their end. Oh, it is.
so Tom, am I coming through now?
Yes.
Tom, is it working now?
It's pretty quiet. It is. It's still a little quiet, but we're working on it.
Hold on a sec. Let me try plugging my headset into my phone.
Peter, can you say something? I want to see if it's just Kevin or if it's all of them.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Peter's
1,
much-
2.
Peter, you're much louder. I think, than my
Well, I can hear everybody else. Is that better?
Still adjusting it.
Kevin, I hear you just fine.
Yeah, well, I hear everybody else, and
I can hear fine. I'm just curious if it's something with this headset.
at
Kevin?
full, yes.
Try logging out and logging back into the Zoom. I've noticed that on occasion, some of the channels don't work well in a meeting, and it's just sort of luck of the draw. So see if that works.
So wait, I tried a different headset.
There we go. Built-in speakers a little bit easier. Yeah, there you go. That was much better, Kevin. Thank you.
So is that better now?
A lot better.
Okay, no, I tried a different headset.
And I think we might have had a bad speaker too.
Okay. All right. Well,
Sydney's all over this. We might upgrade her to like AV or tech department.
As long as I still show up the same amount of time, I'm good with that.
She's had a little experience, she says.
well, when you've got multiple devices, I had, you know, my Plantronics connected to my computer and to my laptop and to the phone. So I just had to disconnect some of the Bluetooth pieces. And I think I was splitting the signal too many times. So anyways, let's.
Perfect now.
Okay. So let's call to order the Thursday, September 9th, school board meeting. We are in person and online. Are there any changes, additions, and approval of the agenda?
We do not need an executive session at this time. Not ready with an agreement.
Okay. All righty. Any other? Okay, we can adjust with the other items as we move forward. Okay. So can we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I move that we approve the agenda as presented.
So we have a motion and a second, please.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for tonight's meeting. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. The first item is the Global Lens reporting, Section 1 policy, executive EP, and review of the district ends policies to current events. So Tom, if you would.
Yeah, well, I have delegated it to my two partners here, tag team, who are gonna, maybe they're gonna explain this, but what we were gonna do is start a new process where they do a sort of a coordinated report every business meeting. So the first meeting of every month where they do pick a particular ends policy and report out on how that relates to current events, so that the board is getting a whole perspective on each of the ends and how they relate to current events. So today they're going to work on talk about citizenship and global awareness. All right, so they're going to come on up to the podium so that everyone can hear them, and hopefully you can see them.
So as Tom said, I want to talk a little bit about citizenship and global awareness of what's happening in the district, newest and latest. Okay. So one of the things that we did at the elementary level was to implement a new ELA curriculum called EL Education. And within that curriculum, there are diverse set of topics and text within. And one of the things that we are discovering is that some of the topics that are presented are sensitive. And so teachers are needing some support, and luckily we have Maggie, who was hired just exactly for this purpose, and she's been working with some of the teachers as they uncover some of the upcoming topics that they're planning for, and they reach out to her, and she and I work together on presenting or creating a document that is like a supporting document for one of the upcoming units. And so we gave that to the teachers, and they were very thankful and see a need for continuing that process. There are other units, upcoming units, that we are going to be working with them on. And it's just mostly things like background knowledge for teachers so that they have a better understanding of the topic that they're going to teach. And then scripting is part of the responses to possible questions that might come up from students. So being a little proactive that way, it's a little easier for us to deal with some of the questions that might be coming up in a sensitive and appropriate way. So that's working out pretty well. And then there are plans being made to figure out how to make all of these supplemental materials or supplemental documents accessible to not only the teachers, but also community and family members, because parents will also want to know what they're learning about in the curriculum and how it's being handled. And they'll be able to see some resources that they also might be able to take advantage of as a parent supporting their child in school for that day. That's what we're working on right now at the elementary level. And
Thank you, Kathy.
So at the secondary level, the high school is focused on place-based learning. And on the fall PD, they had a day dedicated to a menu of opportunities for teachers. One of the opportunities was bringing in a gentleman named Earl Hatley, who was saying how you can build land acknowledgement and integrate that into your course. And so he did a presentation in the library for some teachers. And one of the outcomes was that a group of 3 English teachers at the high school then implemented that in their classroom, where their students wrote land acknowledgements and also wrote letters to go to representatives and to school administration. Tom received some letters today. Coach, I think you have some coming to you in the mail. So it was a classic example of we're trying to integrate some ideas into the classroom. The school provides PD in that area, and the teachers are able to implement the idea. And I can share the land acknowledgements from the students with you folks. If that's interesting, just drop me a note. I'll be happy to email them to you. But the interesting thing, talking to one of the teachers, she was amazed at the quality that they were able to produce so quickly and the research that they dove in on into the project. So it was a really good entry-level example of place-based learning where the engagement level rose immediately because the content being provided. And that's the secondary version.
Thanks, Roy.
Cool.
I think that's going to work out really nicely. I started to put it right on the board's work plan so that you'll know which end is going to be reported on and when. So just using that column, trying to complete the process.
All right. So, thanks, Tom. The next item is communication and support to the board. Section 1 EL9 policies. So we'll start with the student representatives reports. I know it's still early in the calendar, but I would imagine there's a lot going on, and hopefully you'd like to share.
To share tonight, Sydney, or
She can go first if she
Yeah,
wants.
I'm happy to share. First of all, I would like to thank Mr. DeBalzi, coach, and the entire board for your flexibility in rescheduling today's meeting. It means a lot to me and my family that you were able to work with me to help me avoid that conflict with Rosh Hashanah. And I would also like to apologize for not communicating with Sydney so that we're able to come up with a more cohesive combined report. We will definitely do that ahead of next meeting. But while I am talking, Sydney, feel free to jump in if you have anything else that you'd like to add, or feel free to share your thoughts at the end if there's anything that you feel like I'd missed. But as has been talked about a little bit, school just got started. We are in our 3rd week of school right now, and everyone is incredibly excited to be back in school. You can feel the excitement everywhere. So I would like to thank Mr. DeBalzi and Mr. Fogg on behalf of the entire student body for making it possible for us to be back in school. Even though we're still wearing masks, it's still wonderful to be back in school and to see everyone once again. The Performing Arts Department is especially excited to be back. The band and choir are now both able to perform in school in person with our full regular size performing ensembles. And that is quite the impressive landmark for us to be reaching, because we have not been able to do that since my sophomore year. So it is very exciting for everyone in these ensembles to finally have the opportunity to experience the full arts at Hartford High School. Along with that, the annual Hartford High School Fall Musical is beginning its practice. And this year the musical is Cinderella. Rehearsals are starting soon. I believe some parts have officially started already. The cast list has gone out, and this is a very exciting time for the Performing Arts Department at Hartford. Students are also incredibly enthusiastic about the return of athletics. We are now able to host regular sports events at Hartford High School, and we're able to have a small but still mighty student section at these games. And we are all so thankful for the effort of Mr. DeBalzi and Mr. Fogg and our COVID coordinators to be able to make this possible. We are all so thankful and so appreciative of the work you have been able to do to make it possible for us to be back in school and to have a really normal feeling start of the school year. That being said, there are a couple things that I have noticed that are of a little bit of concern to me. The first is that there has not been passing time built in between advisory and block 4 in the Hartford High School student schedule, as well as in between block 4 and block 5 and the final end of the school day. So that ends up meaning that there's a lot of confusion on the part of both students and teachers about when block 4 actually starts. And especially in regards to the block 5 end of the day transition period, block 5 is when Hartford High School performing arts opportunities are. So that is when band is performing and choir is performing. And the fact that block 5 ends immediately at the end of the day means that rehearsal ends at the end of the day. That means that students are not packing up until several minutes after the school day finally ends. And because of a bit of a bottleneck, this means that some students may be running late to get rides to sports games or reach the bus, either to get home or get to games or things like that. And so it is a concern in the school for performing arts students that they are not able to get to their rides on time. So it would be greatly appreciated if either the buses could be asked to wait a little bit longer, or if it would be possible to build in a little bit of passing time in some way so that performing arts students are able to get to their rides on time and don't have to worry about being late. The equity coordinator, Maggie Ibrahim, recently gave a talk to each of the grades at Hartford High School individually, talking about the role that she'll be filling at school and how she will be working to collaborate with us. And I attended the conversation that she was having with the senior class. And in that conversation, she was talking about the need for student feedback. And I'm very pleased that she has reached out to me personally because of my work with my capstone on transgender inclusion to work together to figure out what information needs to be covered in an upcoming faculty workshop around transgender and gender inclusion for the Hartford High School staff. And I am very pleased to be able to say that I will be able to help with that faculty meeting and that some of the information that I have collected will be useful to her and to the rest of the Hartford High School staff. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Really nice job, Olivia. Nice, such a thorough report. And Roy and I will address the passing time tomorrow.
Thank you.
Principal and administrator.
Thank you. Well done. That is the evolution, of the roles, and I'm really excited and honored that this is where we're at. So, Miss Sydney, do you have a sharing?
What I'm going to say is not as well said as Olivia. She pretty much explained everything that's going on. So some more information, everything I've seen and noticed recently is going really well in the school, and everyone's very happy to be back. The faculty members are very excited to have all the students in full classrooms and full capacity. Everybody is excited that athletics are back and there's no masks needed for games. So a lot of people are very pleased with that, and it's much less of a frustration for the athletes, especially playing the games itself, especially me too. Another thing that one of the concerns, I guess, that I've seen recently, which it's obviously it's going to happen no matter what. The faculty members are trying their best to enforce the mask mandate to all the students. The majority of students would probably wear their mask like below their nose or on their chin. And a lot of my teachers luckily are very patient with the students trying to enforce those rules. And the students are also being helpful or trying to listen to the teachers, no matter how repetitive it gets. The student section, like at the football games and pretty much at all the sports events, are mainly like full capacity. The whole student section is there, which a lot of students are unmasked, obviously, because it's outside the building itself, which is fine. Although I haven't seen or haven't heard of like any COVID cases coming up from that, so that's good. I do feel like in some ways that no matter what happens at the events, that all the students are very like close contact to each other, or they're like right next to each other. Is that I feel like there should be, at least if they're going to be that close, possibly a mask mandate coming back if there is a COVID case that, or an outbreak of some sort, or somebody does test positive. Just so that way we can keep the school and all the faculty members and the students safe, no matter where we are, especially if we're still on school grounds, no matter if it's in the building or outside the building. To conclude my, I guess, speech, I overall pretty much see everything's going good. Chamber choir and jazz band is back. So the students are really happy about that, and everything's going pretty good.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sydney. I guess my comment is it's always fascinating perspective as far as, you know, with two individual members, you're going to get two different perspectives. We're looking forward to that continued voice because it does make a big difference in how we approach our collective work as a board. And as you saw tonight, there's a direct correlation to the work of the superintendent's office as well. So your role is pretty clear, or it should say is clearing up for you. So thank you both.
Coach,
Yes,
may I ask a question of our student representatives?
sure.
Thank you. And you feel free to answer or not answer, but how do you feel the new Block 5 is working? Do you think there's a consistent application of the rules? And is it, just get a general impression. What does the students think?
Olivia, are you good if I answer that?
Yeah, go ahead. Step right in if you have some thoughts.
So, for me personally, Block 5 is pretty confusing, especially because it's right after Block 4. And just the timing from Block 5 in between Block 4 is about 4 minutes, which is a good amount of time to get to the advisor that you're in, or is a good time to go get help from another teacher. However, for band and choir kids, I can't say that it's a good amount of time or a good limit, specifically because it takes a bit of time for a choir to prep and get your materials needed for singing, or if you need to go to the bathroom. I know that the choir teacher, I can say from experience, is a little bit strict on that, which is, it's okay. I understand she's trying to get as much time in as needed. The band teacher is pretty good about that. So I don't really like how Block 5 is planned out, especially because obviously the band and choir kids are using their time, their free time, to do music, which is what they're passionate about or what they want to do. But the other students are also getting enough time to go see teachers, or the seniors are now able to go leave the school. Like a bunch of the seniors that are in band and choir obviously cannot leave the school or the building at that time because they are doing other activities. So it is a bit frustrating. And like Olivia said before, on how we pretty much end the last minute at 2:53, it is a bit frustrating. And I do wish that we could possibly get out earlier, just because it is more of a process for us to pack up all our stuff at the end of the day.
Thank you.
And continuing to step in with what you were saying, Sydney, with a bit of a senior perspective, there is a lot of anger in the senior class, especially at the placement of Block 5. So previously, the space that Block 5 used to be in was H Block, which was a combination of lunch and a little bit of free time. But a lot of seniors are very angry that that time was moved from the middle of the day to the end of the day because they no longer see the point in staying in school for essentially a free block. So there was a great push for the senior class to be able to leave campus during that Block 5 time. And I know, knowing my classmates, that a lot of seniors are more concerned with just getting home at the end of the day because they don't want to stay in class anymore than potentially reaping the benefits of that time. And the biggest hurdle that seems to be facing students in the pursuit of actually taking advantage of their Block 5 free time is just its placement and not wanting to do something at the end of the day during essentially a free block.
Thank you.
I have one more thing to add before we end or go on to the next conversation, is that one thing that the students are have to do before the end of the day is they have to go back to their advisors and check in to make sure that they're allowed to leave. I don't feel like that is something that is needed, because if the students that are not in band and choir are in one place at a certain time, the teachers who are watching the student should know that the student is there and are leaving at a certain time. I don't feel like that the student should be needed to go back to their advisor and say, it's like, oh, I'm here, okay, bye. And I think that's just more time consuming, and I think that it's not needed at all.
If I could interrupt for just 1 second, Nancy Russell got dropped off of the panel and needs to be let back in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, well, I'll address those concerns tomorrow and figure out a way where, personally, it'd be nice to address those concerns before they come to the board level, because, there are operational things that, the administration and the staff at the school need to try to address, have a chance of addressing before they're at the board level. Not that it's was an attempt by the high school administration to address some concerns about last year's schedule, and I'm sure they got some things right and some things wrong. So we're happy to address it, happy to discuss it, but we'll see what we can get changed tomorrow, and what sort of forum we can have to discuss things with them, with the high school administration, and then bring them here or report on the resolution of any concerns that the student body has.
So I would, it's nice when that can happen, but I think one of the advantages of having two students that are engaged in the learning process to the point where they're able to be as articulate, as both of them are for us. And when I say that, us collectively, the process might not have been, like usual, but that's part of what we're doing. This is an experiment in redesigning the way we do business. And so that, being said, the three key administrators that are responsible for all of that are sitting in this room. And so I've always appreciated, the fact that Tom and his team have been very proactive and responsive. And so this is just another opportunity for us to stay ahead of the curve, because, we'd hate to hear about this another month from now or another 2 weeks from now, and you hadn't had the opportunity to address it. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you very much, Russ, for your question.
I enjoy hearing from the students any concern they have. I just want to, reiterate to the board that that's the first I'm hearing of it. you know,
Well.
haven't had a chance to address with the high school administration, but I'm
Yeah.
happy.
No,
So-
that's, you know, that's, you know, that's fine. You know, that's, you know, I guess that's the unique nature of, you know, of this experiment, you know.
No, I think it's great. So I'm gonna jump into the,
Yes.
I'm sure there are some similar concerns like that from the student body at probably all the schools. You know, one thing I always encourage the administration to do is try new things. And they like to try new things. Sometimes they get it right and sometimes they get it awfully wrong. So that's part of learning and growing and being innovative. But you know, the last since we met last, the weeks have been full of welcoming staff back, welcoming students, welcoming parents on campus. It's been pretty exciting, you know, because we haven't been fully in person for over a year. So it's very exciting. It's very challenging because we have everyone on campus. We're reminded all the time across the state of Vermont that we have 80,000 students in person every single day in our schools across the state. And, you know, Hartford's no different. It's a big challenge and it's a lot different than we were last year when we had half the students. It was a lot easier to manage with the COVID requirements. But I think the staff are doing really well. The kids are doing very well. Yes, we are reminding them to pull their masks up at times and but they're pretty good about it. I've been working hard to make sure the facilities and, you know, all the routines and various skills of schools are working well. The bus transportation, every year at this time, we have a few weeks of growing pains. You know, all of a sudden there's more students on one route and less on another route than there were in the previous year. And again, last year, we only had half the students each day at the middle and high school. So that's been a challenge. Continue to work on it and make little improvements. You know, and as you know from the country, from the news all around the country, there's such a shortage of staff. It has a huge impact on the school. And I feel fortunate that we do as well as we do, but I have to recognize that all of our ancillary services are struggling to find workers. The bus company is short, the food service is short staffed, the cleaning service is short staffed. And even though I don't let them off the hook for what their charges or what their responsibilities are, I also have to be reasonable and recognize what they're contending with, because I know from all around the country that there's a real shortage of workers and skilled laborers and pretty much every walk of life. So I have to be patient, but I'm also, you know, struggling with some of the shortages. It's just hard to deal with. But people are working really hard to make up for those shortages. Recently, well, this week, as I've told you in the past, we have a lot of turnover in my office, which is not something we're accustomed to. In the 10 years I've been in the Hartford School District, most of the people in the central office have been there. 30, 35, 40, 50, 57 years is the most senior person in the central office, believe it or not. And everybody else is pretty much in the 30 category, 35, 37 years. It's crazy. So it's incredible. And there's a wealth of knowledge there, but the payroll clerk, Linda Kucha, who I think she's 33 years, is retiring at the end of December. We started searching for a replacement for her because we want a nice long transition. So we've hired someone this week, and really excited to have her aboard. So she'll be starting the 27th, and we'll be working with Linda for several months because we pay over 450 people every payroll. It's just short of $1 million each payroll, and it's very complicated. So we're gonna have her do a nice long transition with the current payroll clerk. At the same time, our Director of Buildings and Grounds, Byron Baribeau, after 37 or 8 years, is retiring at the end of this month. And I had a committee narrowed down to two finalists, and I did an interview with each of them earlier this week, and a lengthy walk around the district to see what they thought and what their knowledge was around facilities. And hopefully we'll have a new director, or I'll make an offer to someone early next week. But that's a key position with the amount of real estate that the school district owns and maintains, runs. And it's also responsible for safety and security, as well as maintenance and custodial services for the whole district, which is 7 big buildings of Wilder School. So it's a big job. It's someone that's works very closely with me, so I'm being very careful. And then I think in the spring we have Linda Nash is retiring in March, and she's the HR person for the whole district, and she also has been here around 34 years and will be really hard to replace. So we have a revolving door there right now, and I purposely spaced it out so they didn't all go in at the same time, but they are all retiring within the year. Jim Mazina is semi-retiring in December, and I think that's it. But that's pretty much the entire office. We're just hoping to have a really smooth transition. And that's my report for that section. We talk about COVID in a minute under governance. Any questions or concerns with anything I said?
I think are there any other questions from the board members regarding those reports from Tom at this point?
Oh, thank you very much, though.
It looks like Nancy is still working to get back in. If we can check that status, that would be great.
You check Zoom, CATV. Can you check Zoom to see if Nancy Russell is trying to get in? She needs to be upgraded to a panelist, please. Thank you.
And let's see. So that brings us to the governance process, COVID protocols and updates.
Yeah, COVID. I just wanted to go over a few things quickly for the school board, so you're aware of things in case you hear any concerned citizens or parents or students talking, discussing, or complaining anything about COVID protocols in the Hartford schools. You know, like Sydney and Olivia said, I think overall we're doing fairly well with it. This year is really different than last year because our major defense against COVID and the variants are the masks. So we're being really strict with them, especially in the schools, well, in all the schools, but in the elementaries and middle school, the majority of kids who aren't vaccinated, I think it's even more critical. So we have been demanding that students wear them over their nose and mouth, and in a couple instances, we've actually had to send some students home at the middle school because they refuse. And most of the time, their parents support that, but in case you hear, sometimes they're upset with that. But we feel like we have no flexibility, no latitude with altering our stance on wearing masks. It's our number one defense, and a lot of unvaccinated kids at the middle and the elementary school. We had one case last week at the middle school which required 30 students to quarantine. And that's an awful disruption to their education. So we're going to be really strict with the mask wearing and the other protocols we have to combat COVID. We had an outbreak, a person test positive at White River School today. So there are about 30 students who are quarantined for the next several days at the White River School. And that's unfortunate, but it's, you know, what we have to do. We don't determine the close contacts. The nursing staff and the COVID coordinators go over that with the Department of Health and the contact tracers, and they determine who needs to quarantine. So anyone who's vaccinated, staff or students that are 12 or older that are eligible and have the vaccine do not need to quarantine. But anyone else who's considered a close contact has to quarantine. And that's different than New Hampshire. New Hampshire has different rules. So if you work at DHMC or you deal with folks from New Hampshire, you're going to have discrepancy in what they're doing. They're not requiring quarantine for close contacts. They're just requiring close monitoring for symptoms. We also are not, as the board decided, and I supported certainly, we are not going to look at 80% vaccinated students to remove masks. In fact, the whole state has sort of backed off that, and the Department of Ed or the Agency of Education has now said they recommend masks until October 4th and see where COVID is at that time. But I would recommend we stay with masks indefinitely until we see where the variants are going to go and if there's any relief in the coming months. Something else that's changed and there's been a little bit of confusion around is when students are forced to quarantine, be home, we will provide work. We also can provide remote learning. What's different with remote learning this year is that the work that they complete certainly counts, and it is an ideal way for the kids to keep up with the course content or the schoolwork while they're forced to quarantine. But it is not counted towards attendance. That is not Hartford School District's rule. That is the state of Vermont. We cannot count that towards their attendance. So in the worst case scenario, if we had a school that needed to close because of a COVID outbreak, and there was less than 50% of the students in person at the school, that would be a day that we need to make up. That would be like a snow day or one of the days last year that we were forced to make up because the student isn't in the school in person. It does not count for their attendance. And Secretary of Ed has been very strict about that interpretation. That's how they determine a school day, is when 50% or more of the students are physically present in the school. So I just want to be clear on that. That's not our rule, but it is the rule. And we do have to justify to the Department of Ed in our census report how many kids were present on every day. It's got to be over 50% to count. But again, the work would certainly be counted. The student wouldn't be penalized for not being present, but they would be marked absent. Any questions about that? I know there was a little bit of confusion and the Department of the Agency of Ed clarified about remote work and how it would be counted, calculated.
Coach, can I ask Tom a question?
Sure, go ahead.
I read an article that in some districts, the Department of Health has been very unresponsive in helping deal with these COVID type cases and contact tracing. What has our experience been?
So far, we've been very fortunate, knock on wood. We have an office right here in White River, and we have really great people, nurses staffing it, and they work very well with our nursing staff and our COVID coordinators. So we haven't had trouble with that, but everybody recognizes they are overwhelmed. And it's creating a big delay. So hope we don't get into that situation.
Right. So that's one of those times where location.
And the Department of Education and the Department of Health recognize that, and they are working on, figuring out a better plan, how to do that more effectively and more quickly.
But you can imagine in some of the communities that don't have a regional office as actively placed as ours, and the fact that they share a lot of the leadership with our nursing team over time, even in non-COVID type situations. So it's just it was an easier crosswalk, I think, for our team as it developed. And we're pretty fortunate to have the medical team that we have, especially on staff. So at least that's the observation from this seat.
Coach,
Yes.
I'd like to state as emphatically as possible how much I support the full enforcement of the mask rule. Anybody who's been paying attention to the national news is seeing what happens when masks are not worn. There's a report out of Florida of a school district in which 4 teachers died within 2 weeks because they were not having masks allowed. There's a report out of Texas where well over 780 students in one district came down with COVID, and they had to reinstate mask rules. We are responsible for the health of our staff and our students, and I'll be damned if I'm going to do anything other than make sure we take care of our people.
And I will second that.
Thank you. Thank you.
So I guess that is clear what the position of the board is. And so you
just muted yourself, Coach.
Sorry about that. Sorry about that. I think once it's updated on my laptop, I'll probably switch devices here in a minute.
Well, thank you for the support. Everybody's been very understanding. Only a few people have made it to my phone and my desk, and when I've explained, they've understood. Occasionally, I've had parents just question it. There is one other thing, if you don't mind, that I add to that report, and it's on surveillance testing. We'll start. We're all signed up. We're pretty much ready to go. We will start the week of October 11th, which is we have that Monday off for Columbus Day, but we will be starting surveillance testing on students and staff who volunteer and give permission to be tested. And it's a huge endeavor. Roy just developed a survey to go out probably tomorrow to who is actually going to give permission, so we can kind of get geared up. But all the tests will be delivered to the superintendent's office in the beginning of the week, and we'll distribute them to the schools, and then they will be picked up by the courier at each school at the end of the day, and they will go to the lab in Cambridge, and we'll get the results. But should be pretty interesting. We did this last year, and we coordinated it the same way, but it was only for staff. As you know, the staff is about, we have about 200, 250 people every time we did the surveillance testing. This year, though, with 1,850 students and 450 staff, it's going to be a much bigger project. So It should be interesting, but I really appreciate the COVID coordinators who have done all the legwork, and I'm going to appreciate Kathy and Roy's help in distributing these tests to each school before they start at 8 o'clock in the morning. I'll let you know how it goes. It's a self-administered test, similar to the one we did last year with the staff. So the elementary students, I think it's from age 5 up, will be doing their own swabbing of the nostril. It's not way up or anything. It's just the edge of the nostril on each side. And we'll be doing it with a lot of volunteers and the nurses' guidance. And it should be interesting, but we'll do it as efficiently as possible. And that's going to be a big help because the testing, I think, has been delayed at certain areas, and we'll be able to really monitor and keep the schools and the staff and the students a lot safer. I hope a lot of people sign up. We've actually been told, and this is slightly controversial but interesting, that there is going to be an incentive program, a grant program run out of the Agency of Education for students who get vaccinated. So the higher your vaccination rate in your school, the more money you will actually receive. And it is several $1 million available for this grant. So that could be interesting too, how that's going to work. And I guess they've said part of the grant process is that students will have a say in how the money's spent if the school does receive grant money for a high vaccination rate.
I think that's a total of like $4 million, isn't it, Tom?
Yeah.
That's the number I'm remembering.
They've received some criticism, but I think they're trying to think out of the box on how to get the kids that are eligible to be vaccinated.
Right.
I have something to add real quick. So just to clarify, you said that the students will be administering their own tests. Will they need to take like a form home to get signed by their
Yeah.
parents? Okay.
Yeah, every student who's a minor would have to have permission from their parent to take the test. Everyone will have to give permission to allow us to process the test.
I just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, and we'll be doing that in the next couple of weeks because we have to be fully ready for October 11th. But that's why we're doing the survey, just so we can kind of gauge how much help we're going to need in the schools. I mean, if we have an overwhelming turnout or people who say they're going to do it, we're going to need assistance in each school to just facilitate getting the test done. And we've heard, we haven't seen, but we've heard that the Department of Health has staff that they can provide to help us administer the tests. But if I know our nursing department, they'll have a little army of helpers ready to go at each school. They'll probably team up and do each school together and get it done quickly. We don't want to disrupt the school day too, so the more concise and consolidated the time of the testing, the easier it's going to be on the instructional day.
Which makes sense.
Thank you.
One more follow-up question before we go
Yes.
to the
Yeah,
topic.
go ahead.
So the test, I'm assuming they'll be administered or like self-administered in the morning before classes. If it does perhaps interfere with first block for students, will there be a change in the time of when the test will be administered, such as like during advisory time or during lunchtime?
We haven't figured out the time yet, but we will be trying to figure out a time that doesn't interfere as much. So maybe it would be advisory or at lunch when it's convenient and not too inconvenient for the teacher or the student. So any feedback like that would be good to know. Mm-hmm. But I mean, we're in the process of figuring out how and when we're going to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I know a bunch of people, like, especially in my advisory, that say that they're going to another advisory. So, but I feel like that'd be a more convenient time for students. I don't know how convenient it will be for students that are in the tech center. But I know that for some classes, there are students that are going off campus to basically do like a shadowing or to do a dual enrollment. So I feel like if there
Well, we need to work out the details, so it's very, very quick and efficient. It's like a 3-minute thing. Once you have the test in your hand, you swab each nostril, put the Q-tip in the vial and seal it. And you're done.
Yeah.
It's could be very quick, but it's getting it in your hands in a way that we can do it safely, effectively, quickly.
And it sounds like the survey that Mr. Hathorn's working on will help us in getting some of those T's crossed and I's dotted. So that proactive planning will help us along the way for sure.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for this section? Otherwise, we'll move on to the annual work plan and community engagement topics.
So the board is very familiar with the layout of the work plan. And I think what I've done this year that's a little different, I added in some tentative topics for the linkage meetings, AKA the engagement meetings. And those are just draft, but from what Hava and Russ have told me about potential topics, I placed those in that column. I did have to use some abbreviations just to make it fit neatly, but DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the ends committee recommendation. So that was just my first initial try at getting a comprehensive board work plan on one page. I'm sure the board has some ideas or recommendations for informing the public about the community engagement meetings, but I really wanted the board to sort of have a scope of the work for this year. So again, it's a draft. I want to hear you. I think I've got everything that the board deals with in a year on there, including all the company stuff.
So in keeping with the conversations we had both at the retreat and ongoing around communication in general, I really appreciate, the work, and it's very clear and concise, as far as what is there. The only edit that I saw directly was when you expand the row along the top, you pick up 21, 22 a little easier, but it will also give you space to add community engagement under linkage meetings. I think that it would be a lot clearer to anyone who's not familiar, with what we're working on, to be able to look across the top and go, oh, linkage meeting, community engagement. Or that, just a minor,
No, it's helpful. I mean, it's trying to serve a couple different purposes. So
Oh yeah,
more clear is welcome.
I'll forward, because I changed it on mine, before I printed it, and it looked okay when it printed out. So, but other than that, I think for the community to be able to, on the board's page, look at, oh wow, what is that? And there's going to be questions that the general public that's not familiar with the workings of the board are going to have anyways, and that'll spark interest in itself. So I think that having it in this format and having it available, both on the district's page and then on our Facebook page would be really advantageous, I think.
Coach,
Yes, sir.
I have one, what it may be a substantive change, to just some informational.
Okay.
I would like to change the ordering of certain monitoring reports. I think EL 10, the race and inclusion, should be moved up and maybe even introduced as part of our next community engagement meeting, since it ties right into the topic. And I think it would be very timely to show where we're at, so the public and the community knows that we're actively working on this and it is an important issue to us. So 4 and 10 is what I'm proposing to switch.
Right. I got you. I can see that. I've got it, in front of me, and that, and that would work, because one of the things that, people would understand about, any of the monitoring reports is once they're reviewed, they're kind of in a draft state anyways, because it's not considered to be the end all ultimate report. It's supposed to be a kind of an interactive report. It should be, at least that's the way we've been trying to approach it. So I'd have no problem with that personally at all. And it seems to make sense with our timing of things.
If I can add, Coach.
Yes, sir.
I think that's a great idea. I just want to make sure that everyone's aware that the new equity coordinator is brand new. So on October 13th, she's got, a couple months under her belt as far as tenure in the district working on EL 10. I mean, that's really my responsibility, but I just want the caveat, it's going to be a little bit preliminary. So
Well, that's
starting,
right.
and we're probably going to have to follow up on this after we get a little bit more work done.
Well, that's why
climate, I don't think that's a bad idea.
Yeah, no,
To continuous update. And I think it's an opportunity then to also illustrate what an executive limitation policy is all about and what some of our plans are. Because let's face it, Maggie's great, but in 2 months, there's only so much more she would accomplish anyway.
Right.
So
I just wanted to make sure everybody.
no, I mean, we do have to manage expectations, because you're absolutely right. Can't necessarily expect everything to be done, but we can talk about what we see, because that's all part of the process.
Right.
See, that's why at the beginning of that statement, I said, there's no, final draft of any of the monitoring reports. They're usually informative, and every time that we've gotten a monitoring report, there's always been, wow, that other question. So in this particular one, everything that Russ and you yourself, Tom, brought up fits. This is going to be one of those unique monitoring reports that, let's just live with it. It's going to be constantly emerging, for lack of a better way to put it.
The other thing I think that some board members and certainly Kathy and Roy probably aren't aware of is when this work plan was originally devised, the monitoring reports for both GP, BSR, and EL were all carefully laid out to the month or the time of the year and the work that the board was doing. So the reason that EL4 is in October is because it's financial conditions, and we're talking about the audit report, we're talking about gearing up for the budget. So everything is sort of calibrated to the work that we're doing at that time of the year, if you look carefully. So although I think this still works, switching 4 and 10, I just want you to be aware that they're geared and tailored to the work that the board's doing. It's not just, willy-nilly.
Right. No, but it still fits that sequence.
It does.
When we look at our timing, being that, we're looking, at, our final drafts of the budget are usually needed for early January. Our budget cycle, we're right in the midst of it. So EL4 and 5 both are critical to that part of the process.
Yeah, I just always thought that was sort of a neat thing that we did that. That's why they don't go in order 1, 2, 3, 4. They go according to the work.
So in that case, Tom, we could just move 4 down 1 and put 5 where 10 is, and that would still, because let's face it, unfortunately, our audit really has not been done before November, as long as I can remember.
True.
So
Exactly.
that then would still fit with your absolutely impeccable logic and still accomplish what I hope to.
I just always thought that was kind of neat that we actually do try to inform the public, inform new board members and anyone else about the work we're about to engage in.
So
Why they laid it out the way they are.
Yep.
I think we're all on the same page. I see some nods.
Coach,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to extend my thanks to you and to the board members, Mr. North and Hava, who worked to come up with the community engagement calendar. That's important work, and I appreciate that you took that on. And also, in passing, thank you to Tom for his work in getting this calendar together, because it's always a difficult thing.
Well, kudos to Russ and Hava. They took the let's say the brunt of the work on and did an incredible job pulling the materials and concepts together. So thank you very much. And I think that this is just fine tuning. This piece here, and that's why we do it.
It really should be a fluid document. It's the board's work plan. It needs to be sort of, flexible, pliable.
Yes, and as Tom said, the engagement also is sort of geared around the budget cycle. I mean, that's why in October we talk about the capital budget, because we're just starting.
Exactly.
And that's why in February, there's an open slot, because that might be an additional discussion about the budget type thing.
Mm-hmm.
Hava and I are working on an outline of like potential topics that we will share with the board, and that people see if there's something missing from a particular topic in the outline, please share it with us. And then once it's sort of been disseminated to the board, then that would be something else I'll put up on the Facebook page. So so when it says budget and capital maintenance, then it would talk about our capital maintenance plan, bonding, the criteria for using a bond versus making it out of the operating budget. So people can be more informed.
Yeah, and that fits operationally with the way we've been doing this and how it's emerged over time. So it's really consistent and pretty exciting too. So
It is. Really exciting.
And by the way, I always appreciate the fact that Tom sends me a notice before the meeting to remind me that I've got a report to do. It's kind of him. It saved me from embarrassment a couple of times.
I gotta remember now, because I have to move from the responsible parties. I think I got it, because those are my reports.
Right,
so.
right.
Yeah.
Those are ELs.
Yeah.
Because when you first look at it, because you look across and you go, okay, I've got EL GP3 and BSR 5. So then I'm looking and I go, EL5, because your eye going across the spreadsheet automatically goes, I got to do that one too. No, no, but
Another improvement, I actually have a new draft from the one that I sent you this afternoon that includes Roy and Kathy's report on the ends tonight. So in that column, it would be 3 and 3.1, which were citizenship and global awareness. So we're going to start to populate that column with the reports that they will do.
And that's great. We haven't had that opportunity to do that yet. So that's really exciting, to have that piece covered. We're actually growing this plan and the process. So
the other thing I think that needs a little bit of adjustment is the column that says linkage meetings and the column that says board education. Oftentimes those two overlap. So since on the 22nd of September, you have DEI training with Dr. Gannon. Well, that's a linkage meeting, but it's also board education.
So actually, it's okay to populate, to double populate, the two columns, because I mean that's what it is, and clearly it serves that function, just like it will do in May as well, and so we can just populate it as it occurs. And then it's even more transparent and doesn't allow for confusion, because some people would say, I wonder why there isn't more going on there, but in actuality there is. We're just using the format as a way to encourage more community awareness of what we're working on.
Well, and any other comments or feedback anyone has, it would be great to, just send me an email or something, anything for other business or other ideas, just to really complete this.
Cool. So, let's see. The consortium agreement?
Yeah, both of the next items are those sort of strange things that the board, the organizations require that the board have a motion that authorizes someone to represent them and represent the district on the agreements. So the VACTED consortium is for the tech center. They have a consortium with all the other tech centers in the state where they do business together, they take action together, and that organization's bylaws require that the board have a designee that signs the agreement, so that they and they know that there is commingling of different tech center funds to make purchases and to secure services for kids across the state in different tech centers. And they require that the board chair or a board member sign that agreement as well as me. So there needs to be a motion. That document's in the Google folder if anybody wants to scan it quickly. And the second item there is similar in that our insurance trust, VSBIT, Vermont School Board Insurance Trust, requires the board to make a motion that someone represents them at their annual meeting and, votes and agrees to the bylaws and agrees to any amendments to their bylaws or any other agreements or actions that that board is going to take. So,
Or disagrees.
or disagrees. In the past,
Because that has happened somebody.
yeah, Russ has done it, I think Kevin's done it, but that meeting's coming up on the 4th or the 5th of November, and they require that by the end of the month, I file the document with the designated board member who's going to attend and sign on your behalf.
So since this is an annual process, and I'd like to make a couple of quick suggestions. One, the VACTED consortium agreement, being that Peter is our liaison to the RAB, it would seem to make sense that he'd have the most active information and data around our work with the tech center, if he would be willing to take that one on. And then as far as the VISMBIT annual meeting piece, I know that Russ, being our chief negotiator and working, in that capacity with Tom and myself, if he would consider this year doing the VISBIT meeting again, that would be great. And you can always CC the rest of the board with the bylaws additions and materials that they might share with you coming up. So that would be my recommendation.
I actually think that's terrific from my viewpoint. We need 2 motions, one to participate in the VACTED consortium agreement, and then a second motion that's to designate Russ North as the VISBIT meeting representative. They both want copies of minutes that stipulate
Right.
specific items.
If somebody wishes to nominate me for the VACTED position, I'd be honored to accept.
Okay, I'll make the motion that we participate in the meeting and that we nominate Russell North to be our representative for VISBIT. Now, do I need to make a second motion with for Peters, or can we include Peters in this same motion?
Let's do one at a time.
Okay.
For documentation purposes.
Okay.
So do we have a second?
I would second the nomination of Russell North as the VISBIT meeting representative.
So we have a motion and a second to have Russ North represent the Hartford School Board at the VISBIT annual meeting in November. If there's no further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. Now we would entertain a motion for our participation and representation in the VACTED consortium.
Again, I'll make that a motion that we participate in the VACTED consortium and that we have Peter Merrill be our representative there.
And I will second that.
So unless there's any further discussion, we have a motion on the floor to participate in the VACTED consortium and have Peter Merrill be our active designee on or signatory on that agreement. Unless there's any further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved.
Thank you very much.
So we have those duly recorded and noted. So at this point of the meeting, we will ask for public comment. So if we have people in the hall or virtually.
Got one select board representative. I don't know if he has any public comment, and I don't know if CATV, are there any public comment?
If there are no public comment, I would like to make a comment, Coach.
Yes, we've done that before.
As some of you may be aware, under whatever law that was, that basically the health insurance plan is negotiated at the state level. And right now there's negotiations going on. I've received various correspondence, and this is just a personal opinion. I personally think that the representatives of the school boards are being short-sighted and being impractical in some of their demands. For one, if they're trying to limit the availability of health insurance for support staff. And right now, you can't find enough support staff as it is. And one of the things that is attractive about that particular position is the health insurance benefits. And I've never liked the fact that they've separated this, because in bargaining, it's a give and take. So if we increase what the teachers, the support staff, the administration has to pay, they're reasonably going to come back and say, we want more money. So it's a fallacy that this is a cost savings. And I actually think it's going to cause ill will amongst the teachers, support staff, and whatever. So it's going to be harder for us when it comes time to bargain. Of course, unfortunately, we only have so much money, and we can't spend it all. But I just think this is a short-sighted approach.
Nancy.
So I'm going to speak from the VSBA side for just a minute, because we had a very large discussion and a presentation on this last night. There are going to be, and we were told at that time that letters like what Russell has been getting has been going out. It is not from the SVBA, but we do know that it's out there, and that for us to remember that they're still in the middle of negotiating. Fact finding, I think, I'm sorry, I was just looking for my paper that I had it on, but I don't know. It's very quick. It's very soon. It's just around the corner. And then we'll see what's going to happen from there. But I do know that they are going to be coming and presenting, or they're asking to come and present to each board. So if Tom has not gotten, or if Coach has not gotten that yet, you will be getting it soon to set a date to come and talk to the boards, so that the boards can ask a lot of questions. And that's it. I do understand where you're coming from, because we had a lot of discussion, a big, very long discussion about it last night. But just to remind that it's not over yet, and that
so it looks
still more to go. Sorry.
I was going to say, it looks like the timing is right on time in a way, in the sense that, it is during our discussions and preparation, for our budget planning. So as Russ duly noted earlier, and Tom as well, EL 4 and 5, this really falls within that,
Right.
that discussion point. So,
Right.
So hopefully we'll be able to get them, on. And once we hear from them, Russ, we'll let you and Hava know too, because if it falls into a good lineup with one of the community engagement, pieces at that same time, they could end up being a guest speaker during that for the community piece as well. And then that way we could ensure that, the owners hear that particular discussion.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, people need to hear both sides of the discussion.
Yes.
Yeah. So thanks for, sharing, your perspective. And now we'll be, in very shortly, we'll be able to hear from the folks that are negotiating
Right.
the contract agreement. So,
That will be the commissioners that will be coming in doing the presentation, by the way.
yeah. Okay.
And I'll make another one real quick comment.
Mhm.
Wayne and I did drop off a large quantity of masks today for the school system again, in anticipation that we are probably going to be needing them.
Cool.
And Roy has them somewhere. If he used them for building blocks or whatever he did when he got out of his meeting, and there were all these boxes there, but there are plenty of masks.
Great.
Roy, do you want to just? Roy wants to respond.
So Nancy, first, thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome.
But the one thing I wanted to comment is, in the boxes, the first time we've seen, there was younger child's disposable masks in there as well.
Cool.
So as you all are delivering those, you might want to mention that to people, because they could get just stored with all the other boxes that people are thinking they're all adult masks.
Okay,
I had a box to distribute to the elementary schools as well, so that was fantastic. But
okay,
just worth mentioning to people.
Thank you.
thank you.
I haven't seen that before.
And we know how excited the young ones are about having the mask anyways. So they're, I mean, you can see it, the news pieces that we've all seen, the kid, the little guys are more excited about, coming back, and just, they're just happy to be here, so that's a good point. Thanks, Roy. And thank you, Nancy.
You're welcome.
For your work with that as well. So, board professional development, GP9.
That's just standard that it's.
Yeah,
on.
right. And we actually know that that's going to be part of our community engagement for the 22nd meeting, coming up. I was going to share a note that I had received from a Southern Vermont colleague who wanted me to share it, and it was about an accolade for Dr. Gannon. She had received a Lifetime Achievement Award from the NAACP.
Wow.
And so they actually posted that at her home college as well, where she teaches as an adjunct professor there as well. So that's pretty exciting, that
That's terrific.
that she's being, recognized for her hard work in trying to help Vermont be a better place and more inviting for everyone. So
Thanks for sharing that.
and I'll make it a point to send the link to everybody, hopefully before the end of the evening.
And one more thing, and then I'll be quiet, I promise. Just a reminder, if you've not already got your invitations to the regional meetings, the one for Windsor is going to be September the 29th at 6 o'clock. It is a Zoom meeting. If you've not received your invitation to it, let me know and I'll make sure that you get one.
Great.
This is a coach can talk to you, because I know Coach and I both have gone to them. It is a regional meeting. It gets you a chance to meet other and talk to other board members that are in our region. It's Windsor, Wyndham and Windsor. And let's see, and it gives the SBA a chance to get out more information to the board members. And once again, we decided that it was better to have it as a Zoom meeting versus in person.
Yeah, I think, you know, as we know, we're all in this transitional period of trying to figure out which modality works best. So looking at hybrids is really a critical piece, I think, to get our work done, you know, when possible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have the consent agenda, and unless there's, when I was looking through the minutes, there was only one little piece that we didn't have in the minutes of August 18th meeting, where we were clarifying assignments, and you know, everything was there except that we didn't have the manifest signings for the accounts payable and payroll, which, you know, I've been doing. So that's the only amendment to that list. You know, and Tom and I will be working on, you know, as the folks that are, you know, work with on a daily basis to make sure that works as they transition, being Linda and Linda. But
does anybody else have any additions, changes, edits? Hearing none, I'd like to move that we accept the consent agenda as amended, with the understanding that when I vote in the affirmative for the acceptance of the consent agenda, I'm abstaining with regards to the June 30th, 2021 meeting, which I didn't participate in.
Duly noted. Tom, were there any appointments or resignations in that consent agenda?
No, I put that on there because I thought we might have one teacher, a late appointment, but it's not ready for tonight.
Okay, cool. Cool. But it's always good to check.
Yeah. It's almost ready, but not quite.
So we have a motion on the floor to accept the consent agenda as amended. Do we have a second? Or did we have?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. So as Tom noted, we don't have an update with the to the labor bargaining agreement, you know, as yet. And other than that, it looks like our next meeting will be a community engagement meeting focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion training for the board. And we've invited H. Corey to participate with us. And we also invited any of the select board members who are interested in coming to attend as well. I think that it's a community opportunity for leadership, you know, in our town, and so extending that invitation is only the right thing for us to do. Okay. Any other comments before we ask for the meeting evaluation?
I actually didn't include the meeting evaluation form in your packet, so we could look one up from previous meetings, or what's the pleasure? I completely forgot. I'm a little rusty on getting back into this in-person stuff. I remembered name badges, but I forgot to put the meeting evaluation in there. I certainly can pull one up fast, or one of the board members maybe could pull one up from a previous meeting.
I don't have easy access to it, unfortunately.
For us, doesn't mean.
Couldn't we just say we met, we talked, we decided things? It was a great meeting.
So
that seems very, very Roman, you know. We came, we saw,
we conquered.
We wiki, right?
Yeah.
Your classical education is showing, Coach.
Uh-oh, that's scary.
I think that that's a fine meeting evaluation, and that we're receptive and respectful to those who spoke, and we looked to the future. We did not try to meddle in the day-to-day running of the school too much, and we did what we should be doing. So with that, I move that we adjourn.
Second.
So we have a non-debatable motion on the floor. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So moved. Thank you all so much.
Before we disconnect, Tom, could I ask you to call me when you get a moment free?
And
hear me.
hopefully.
Aye.
Right.
Okay, Peter, if you could stay on just for a quick sec, you know, and this isn't a, you know, a private thing. When you do speak to Tom, would you ask him, we've been talking about this, you know, since we've had student members, and I'm almost thinking that having a, and I know Roy's been working on some stuff as far as a handbook, you know, for our student members, so that they have kind of like at least a roadmap to.
My daughter was thinking of how she would pull one together. So great minds are thinking alike.
Okay, so I had a feeling, but I needed to put that out public, and just let them know that we spoke about it too. So if there's any support needed from me in that regard, you know, that's there.
I will do that.
Okay, thank you, my friend.
Thank you. Keep in touch as always.
Oh yeah, you too. Take care. And thank you all, Roy and company, for all of your support and help. I think they can still hear us for a little bit. Thanks, Kath. She's saying like, where'd that voice come from? Out of nowhere. You're not hearing things, Kath. Thanks a lot, Tom. And thanks to our CAT team as well.